Hello, everyone. Today I have Jillie Reil, the Cougar of comedy. She's going to be sharing all types of information for all you comedians, new and old. She plays all over the United States. You might have seen her at the Ice House, the Comedy Store, the Improv. She plays all over the States. She's currently in Miami, Florida, so make sure you're looking for her down there if you're in Florida.
So my last name is pronounced Real. Which is, why God, why? I am borderline beauty queen and biohazard. If I inject one more artificial thing into my body, I am going to have to list my ingredients on my underwear tag to be FDA compliant. Me and Sarah. Active ingredient, botulism, right? Someone says, list your allergies. I'm like, open flames and microwave. Okay? Some of you are judging me. Don't judge. You will all end up putting fake shit in your body one day. I just don't know why you wait until you're dead. It's called formaldehyde, people. Botox gets a bad rap because people say, well, you have no expression or emotion. But guess what? I'm the bitch that keeps people calm in emergency situations. Spirit Airlines charges an upgrade to sit next to me on the airplane.
If you haven't already, make sure you like, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Leave some comments down below. Let us know that you care. Here we go. Awesome. Jillie, thank you so much for doing this interview with me. For the people out there who might not know who you are, can you please let them know who the Cougar of comedy is?
My name is Jillie Reil. I was born and raised in rural Minnesota, and then when I got to be of a certain age, my dream was to move to California and chase guys younger than me and get Botox. So yeah, then you know, at some point I did begin pursuing Hollywood, maybe, oh gosh, now it's been like 16 years ago. Got into modeling, acting. And then I had an agent at the time that was like, you keep saying you're going to do stand-up. And I'm like, one day. And he bombed me with a booking. I had like 3 days to come up with material. And I was a nervous wreck. I spent those 3 days killing myself trying to put some content together, and I did well, but he didn't tell me on top of the whole deal it was a competition. For my first time, I was like, dude. So I got the bug, though. I really did.
Yeah, that sounds like it, because I think most people, that would scare the shit out of them and they would run the other way.
Guess why he didn't give me full disclosure? And shout out to Theo at 90210 Talent, because he's an awesome guy. That's what he did to me.
Nice. Wow.
And he would come to my shows and it was brand new, and he would heckle me, and I'm like, no, don't heckle me. I'm a brand new comedian. You're supposed to be helping me. You're my agent.
So that first experience, like, you know, what was it that really kind of sucked you in and go, man, I really want to do this?
I've loved comedy since I was a kid. I come from a family that is constantly watching comedy, watching stupid programming, telling jokes, picking on each other, being sarcastic. So for us, cracking jokes is just a way of life, but we all really loved Saturday Night Live and stand-ups. So, and I've loved to go watch it my whole life. I just never thought it would be me. But once I did, it's just when you can connect with a random group of people and give them laughter, as you know, it is just such an exhilarating feeling.
Yeah, Jillie, I love hearing how people, like, how they first got into comedy. My thing for me that you might not know is I was deathly afraid and terrified of public speaking. I did an event with my family down in Texas. My grandparents had their 50th wedding anniversary. And so I figured I'd write something nice about them and get up and read it in front of my family of about 60, 70 people. And I was shaking so hard. Had a piece of paper. I was shaking so hard I couldn't read what was on the paper. And I had the microphone and I was like, I had to rest them together. So my hand would be still enough so I could read what was on the paper. And when I was done, my uncle, who was the MC, started walking to the stage, and I threw the microphone at him so I could walk as fast as I could out the exit door, and get my bearings outside. It was ridiculous. And but I spent a few years in Toastmasters, and then I went to school during the recession and went to business school. And anyone who's gone to business school or is thinking about business school, it is literally presentations almost on a day-to-day basis. So through all of that, it kind of kicked the fear of being up in front of people. And actually, I really enjoyed the power that you have when you command the room up on stage. And so that is kind of how I was comfortable with getting up on stage. I still think, though, because I have only been in comedy a few years, had someone just thrown me into the fire like that with a competition, I think that would have probably been my last time ever doing it.
I am probably a sadist because I don't like not being great at something. So I wanted to overcome my terror of being out there because I was, backing up as a kid all the way up until I graduated from high school. I was so quiet, so shy, just so afraid of speaking in general that it's very interesting with comedy. It was during the years where even if you were new, maybe this is still going on, I don't know, but a lot of the new people were going through the Comedy Store. So that was the place that I was performing the most. And I would write my notes up my arm. I'd be afraid not to remember. I would stand up there and go, I swear they can see my knees shaking or me trembling or just standing in one spot going, oh my God, when is this going to end? But it was a personal challenge. And I don't know, that took me a while to get that level of, I wouldn't even have a drink before the show. I'd be afraid I'd forget, not that I'm going to have a ton now, maybe sometimes, but it took me a long while to, I don't know, 3 years, 5 years. I don't remember what it was to get over that fear. Right. And I did do a traveling sales job where I was giving speeches multiple times a day on sexual health and wellness to strangers. So that really, I would say, put me over the edge of not necessarily being nervous in front of crowds anymore.
Yeah. You just at a certain point, you're just like, whatever, this is what I do. I get up and I do it. Right.
Yeah.
I would like to hear a little bit about so I've heard a lot of your stuff. I've seen you live. I think I've seen you in downtown LA. I've seen you online, several shows. I'm curious, how do you come up with your joke material? Is it through life experiences? Are you hitting a notepad every day like Seinfeld? How do you come up with your jokes?
It's all out of my life. So I'm not going to say who it was because I'm friendly-ish toward her still, and I just don't care about the joke. But I always say, you can't really steal my material because it's all personal to my life. So I had told a joke about calling my mom in Minnesota and how many inches she got that. She told me how many inches she got that night. Of course, she's talking about snow. And in a show that I put together and I booked and I picked comics, she told my mom joke in my show. I was like, girl, you're lucky I love you. I was like, what? But yeah, they're all out of my life experiences. And I used to pressure being a new comic, unless you've got a lot of other comedian friends, I guess. I don't know why I didn't have a ton that I was super close to when I started out, but I kept trying to take these classes, and that's fine and well, you can do that. But I think after a while, you really need to just find your own voice and your persona and what works for you. What works for somebody else doesn't necessarily work for you. And I used to write a brand new set every time I went up because I was afraid even one person would have heard my jokes the last time. And this is a development even over the last 5 years where I realized, no, you put one new bit that's in development into a set that you've already been doing, and then keep fine tuning those other pieces. And that way also you're not struggling to remember this giant long brand new set. So I realized that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you go to the stage. It's just so I really try to hone in now more than I used to, which I am realizing, hey, that's what a lot of the people that are touring comedians, they're not telling brand new jokes every city they go to. They might take a look at the crowd and kind of make some observations, and unless they are just a crowd work kind of comedian, but even then I think they have their own formulas on how to do that. They've already got some jokes in mind. They're just going to single out some people in the crowd they can apply them to. So
yeah,
it's I've taken a long road of learning. So, but I think, it does take getting out there, doing it, bombing sometimes, all of it.
Well, I like how you mentioned the classes. I'm always like that. Anything new that I've ever tried, I'm always like, let me take a class, do that master class.
I'm not trashing it. I did.
Yeah, I was going to ask you like what are your feelings towards that? If for a new comedian, I mean, if you were new in this business, would you recommend, jump into a class because it's a safe space, or just to learn joke structure, or would you just say, hey, no, just go out and do a mic and just?
I mean, I do find value in it. Yes. Yeah.
Hi, Chardonnay.
She wants dinner. I do find value in it because you do learn, some of the tricks, the structures, things come in threes, all that. But I think where some of it wasn't good for me is when the teacher is trying to infuse their own voice into your jokes, and that doesn't come off as genuine. It's not you, so to the point that they're rewriting for you, then, I mean, unless you're somebody that doesn't write your own jokes, but I've never done that. It's always had to be come from a very personal place. Yeah. And of course, then I might twist it a little, but I think it's good. But you do have to remember to find your own voice, and really, I think for me, it was remember if it feels weird and you don't feel funny saying it yourself, then it's probably not going to come off that way.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Like, as a comedian, how do you prep for every show?
I will, I use voice record a lot. So, okay. Instead of being the person that writes on a notepad, if I think of some funny thing in the shower, in bed, or I just pick up my phone and I say it, because I think sometimes when if you write a note, you're like, we're all a little crazy. You're like, what the hell did I even mean by this? I don't even know. So I prefer voice notes. And I'll listen through some of them and I'm like, oh, that was a good bit, and hopefully develop it. But how I prep is I find out how much time I have, and then I pick the bits that I want to use. And then I do several voice recordings to fine tune the time to make sure, okay, this many bits will fit in, or I like this layout. So, and I'll do it several times throughout the day if I have time, and then that's usually how I prep.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, I'm similar. I not with the voice recording so much. I've tried doing that. You know, it's when I record my voice, I find that I only go back and listen to it like maybe 5 or 10% of the time, and then I literally have hours of voice recordings on my phone, and I'm like, and so many times I'm like, should I voice record this? And I'll do it, and look at like how long it was, but I won't listen to it. I'm like, shit, like I should really go back.
The only thing I wish I would do more that a lot of people do, and I haven't even been doing it all these years, is they'll record themselves in a show. And I'm like, why don't I ever remember to do that? I never remember to do that.
Really? You don't even do the voice recording, like put the phone on the stool and just record?
I guess every time I'm going up to do a show, that's the last thing on my mind. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I've seen a lot of people who just don't. They just don't. Nope.
And then I regret it sometimes, because it's like there are certain jokes where it's like, wow, that really hit, and I have no idea why. Or they laughed in a spot that I wouldn't normally think they would, and I'm like, okay, what did I do? I wish I could remember.
It's probably body language. That's one thing I have been doing recently is I record everything, video record, and I've been studying it because my comedy is just really focused on being a dad, being that dad, the husband. I love my family, and I'm going to share what it's like being a family guy. And I use my eyes a lot. I get big eyes. I try to use a lot of facial expressions. I really admire like Jim Carrey, the man with the rubber face.
Yeah.
Even though I can't do impressions to save my life, but I love body language. Yeah. And I think body language says a lot. And so, you know, it's funny you just mentioned that, because it could easily be just some of your body language, the way you moved your body, and that's why they're laughing. And
yeah, my friends tell me all the time, just regular life. I'm always making faces, and I'm like, okay. I know that. So it's probably that. I'm probably
exactly. No, that's great.
I've gotten some awful pictures. Somebody's like, I took a picture of you while you're on stage. It's like,
they catch you with your eyes half open.
I'm not posting that anywhere. maybe to shoo someone away, but that's it. Stop bothering me. This is what I look like at night.
Right. Jillie, I wanted to ask you, like, how important or not important are open mics to you?
I've never really used them too much.
Yeah.
But I was told very early on by some more senior comedians, one that's a really good friend of mine that's actually down here too. There was one place in particular I was going, and he goes, don't go there. They steal jokes. So you'd be out there working out your material, and then you'd hear Sally doing it the next week. You're like, what the heck? So I got warned, I guess, really early on about the joke stealers. And I was like, damn, is that a thing? And then I also really, more the senior people were saying, not elderly, were saying to me, it's a good place to work out your stage presence. Absolutely. But in terms of joke response, you've got a bunch of comedians that are judging you or analyzing you, and you're not going to get the true laugh based on what a real crowd would give you.
Yeah.
So now I'm not trashing them, because with that said, I'm very new to town here. And it sounds like a lot of in Miami, and it sounds like a lot of even the veteran comedians here, but they're more like regimented mics. There's a sign up, and they actually do a poster with the names on it, who made it for the evening. So I'm going to give that a shot here, just to get to know more of the comedians in town and get a temperature for these rooms. I've done a few. So yeah, it's but yeah, that's what I was told when I was in LA, so I shied away from them.
Yeah, I feel like they're a good spot to network. I think they're better for networking than anything else. I know
Yeah.
people are like, oh, you got to go to mics. The more mics you do, the better you're going to get. And I'm like, well, true. But I think mics are repetition. All it is you going through your material, trying new material with a microphone and lights in your eyes. And like I
Yeah.
kind of have that here. And so I still do mics, but I don't do them every day. Let me go do. Here's the thing. I feel like you need to get on stage as much as possible, but they need to be shows, so
Yeah.
that you're in front of the audience, like you said. Uh, that's the true qualifier if your joke's funny or not. Is when a complete stranger hears it and they laugh. You know, they rather listen to you than eat their mozzarella sticks. You know.
Yeah. And I realized I'm such a diva. I'm kind of humbling myself a little bit because I was headlining before I left. You know, I was really doing that more. And you know, I'm the new kid in town, so I get here and they're like, "Yeah, we'll give you 5 to 7 minutes." And I was like, "Okay." Like, all right, I'll prove myself.
You'll prove yourself. You will, absolutely. If you could go back in time, Jillie, if you could go back in time, and see yourself as you're getting into comedy, like what's that one thing that you would like to share with yourself? Like what's that one, hey, make sure you do this or don't do this?
God. I feel like it's all been part of the journey.
Mm-hmm.
I did a ton of bringer shows when I first started because at that time there weren't even as many rooms available, I think, like there are now, where it might not be the greatest room, but you don't have to bring people. But I was doing you have to bring 10 people to the Comedy Store on a Friday night, that 2-drink minimum. And at the time I had that kind of following and those kind of friends. And so, but I'm still trying to think, like, what wouldn't I do? I don't have a lot. I mean, what I wouldn't do. Okay, I got one. I was in a terrible marriage at one point, and he didn't really want me, I don't think, out there doing it. And that was probably a time where I was only going up maybe once a month, maybe once every 2 months. And that's what I wish I hadn't done. I wish I would have just kept going up. And, you know, but luckily, you know, I came back more regularly and it was better than ever. And I had a lot to talk about, but that's my regret. Don't let anyone else get in the way of the love of what you do.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with you on that one.
I had to ramble a while before I could get to your answer. I was like, that's what I would do.
Well, it's one of those questions. Like, how often do we think about like, oh man, I learned something really great today. If I could go back 3 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago and tell myself, like, most of us don't think like that, but I think it's one of those things. It's like, it's one of that we learn new stuff in this industry, any industry you work in, but in comedy, we learn new stuff all the time, I think. And there's stuff I know today I didn't know last year before the pandemic. There's stuff I know today I didn't know when I first got in this business. And, you know, I think it's always great to hear what people have to share. And, you know, your response, like, don't let anyone dictate, you know, what you're going to do, like what you love. If you love it, go do it. Like, no matter what, if it's you're married to someone, or if it's your mom, your dad, your best friend, whatever, don't listen to them. I know a lot of people say, don't like say your jokes. I thought you were going to go, because you said you were in a marriage. I thought you were going to say, like, don't say your jokes in front of your loved ones. Like, I know that's a lot of people say, don't do that. I say my jokes to my wife all the time. And when it's a new joke and I'm just developing it, she'll like look at me like, what the hell are you talking about? Because I haven't worked it out. I'm just like, oh, babe, I'm working on this idea. It's great. You're going to love it. You know, I'm going to talk about how tall your mom is. And she was just like, why? My wife's Filipino. Filipino people are little. Like, why are you going to talk about my mom? And I'm like, oh, because she's awesome. And I think it's going to be hilarious. And she's just like, okay. But I don't let that discourage me. And my wife loves comedy and she's like a huge supporter. But most people, you should not tell your friends or your family your jokes until you're up on stage and it's worked out, because most of them can get pretty critical. Like, oh, that's not funny. I've heard people say that to their friends right in front of me. And it's like, that's, you should probably kick that one to the curb. And I'm like, dude, shut up. Like,
and my ex always wanted to hear my material. And then he decided that he was going to kind of censor me and edit me. And it just became something I didn't want to do because it wasn't my voice anymore.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't a comfortable space for me. So
that's interesting. I wonder how many people have gone through that. Like you, have to deal with that.
And it, it's wonderful to hear that your spouse is supportive, because you really need that. And I'm dating, and it can be incredibly difficult. Somebody's like, oh, you do stand up, and just, I can tell either it's a good response or it's a very intimidated response. And I'm not going to bother with that person because they're going to try to make me stop doing it. And that's not going to happen ever again.
Or even if they don't try to make you stop doing it, they're not going to want you to talk about them. I think that's a lot of people are insecure. They don't want to come see you because they know you and they're afraid you're going to say something about them, or you're going to hint their. I've gone to shows where my friends did comedy and they start talking. And I'm like, that little bastard's talking about me. Like, I know, and you kind of feel that, you know what I mean? But I feel like loved ones don't want to hear about themselves in your comedy bits, but it's our life. And I feel like there's a few times where I've had to explain to my parents who are supportive of me doing comedy, but you embellish. I tell my parents it's an 80-20. Like, it's all based on truths, and that's the 20%. The 80% is my mother-in-law is not 6'1", but I say she's 6'1" on stage because it sounds funny. She's Filipino. Like, no Filipino 6'1".
Yeah, of course. We always embellish on
but that's what makes the jokes funny, right? Is that part? But it's I don't know. Some people get so nervous when you talk about them on stage.
I'll be honest. I don't think I have one clean joke. So my things are, there became a point where my dad's like, I can't listen to your material anymore, because I used to call him to run lines for auditions. And I remember he'd sit on the other end of the phone, and even if it was two street hookers, he'd play the other part. And there was one time when I would go, listen to my comedy bits. And he'd be like, just pretend you're not my dad. And the one day he just goes, I can't pretend I'm not your dad anymore. And I go, that's fair.
I have a daughter, and I think I would probably feel the same way.
You would not. Yeah. You wouldn't want to hear.
Well, here's the thing. My daughter, she's a teenager already, and I've gotten on her Twitter accounts, and because she's still a young teenager, she's only 13, and I've monitored it, and she's vulgar, and I'm like, baby, like, you got to realize what you say here is here for eternity. Like, people can look at this. Future companies who might hire you can go back and look at this stuff. So keep that in mind. So I'm like, I have to be the parent, but at the same time, I was like, I don't want to sit there and be like, oh, you can't say the F word. I don't want to be like that. I mean, I know, like, as a parent, like, part of me should be like that, but I'm like, you know what? Why? Because when you're not around me, sure, you don't say it, but when you're around your friends and outside in the world, and when you're an adult, you're going to say it. So what's the point of me saying you can't do that? But I have to at least educate. I feel like I got to educate her on. I always tell her, like, when you talk, like, always, like, you're always responsible for what comes out of your mouth, and be ready for that. So if you're violent towards someone verbally, expect a retaliation. Like, you have to, like, don't think like your words don't have
your footprint.
Yeah, absolutely. Footprint, and there's always consequences. So I don't know. That's the parenting side.
I admire you parents in this modern day and age, raising kids and all the things you have to monitor, and you're on your toes. So my kudos to you. That's not an easy thing to do.
Jillie, I'm a first generation parent in a sense of social media, right?
Yeah.
This shit did not exist 20 years ago, and something our parents didn't have to deal with. And it's challenging for sure.
We handed notes to our friends to give to our other friend.
Exactly. That was our social media. I I would love to know. Okay, if you meet a new comedian today, so let's say you're in Miami right now. If you're in Miami and you do a show, and some young female or male come up to you and like, "Hey, Jillie, you're awesome. I love your material. You know, I love your brand, everything." What are a few tips you would you give that person if they're like, I want to get into comedy? So, what are 2 or 3 things that you think a new comedian should know?
I'm just all about get out there. You know, you can wait until you feel ready, but that's never going to happen. Look at me. I was pushed into it because I kept saying, one day, one day. So get out there. Don't be afraid to bomb. You're going to bomb. You know, the audience really, especially, just doesn't really care that much about you. To be honest, you can overthink it in your head, but this room of strangers, you're purely entertainment purposes, and unless you know them, they literally don't care about you. So get over yourself a little bit, you know, if you're going to do this thing. But I also, because it's happened to me so many times, especially for women, do not feel the pressure of it still happens. It happened to me coming to Miami. You know, and I was trying to network, and instead of networking, the guy's trying to take me out, you know.
I have that problem often.
I know. I heard word on the street. They're like, we don't want to book him, and we're really mad he's married. So, yeah. but it'll happen, you know. I guess it's especially if you're branding yourself as something with sex appeal, be prepared, because there are still people that don't have the best of intentions. So
yeah, predators, and I can just imagine there's got to be people out there. You're in a position of power, and you try to use that as leverage. You try to use this like, yeah, I'll get you on, but you know, I'd like us to go out on a date or something. Like, that's, to me, that's disgusting. Again, maybe if I was 20 years old and just being a boy, I'd probably be like, oh. I'm a father. I have a daughter, and I cannot, for the life of me, just see how any of that would ever be right in someone's mind. I just don't like.
And for me, I just thought it was crap, because I'm very vulnerable. I'm brand new to town. Even though you can be whatever age, but if you don't know anybody in town and you're new on the scene and you just show up with the best of intentions, like, hey, I'm here to support, I'm here to network, and that happens, it's really disheartening. But then to back it up, I did meet some other people on the scene that were so loving, welcoming, sweet, kind, great, you know, but I'm sad I had to have that experience. And so my advice would be to other females, beware, it's going to happen to you. Sorry, most likely it is going to happen to you. Be prepared and be strong, and don't feel like you're obligated to any of that.
Yeah. Don't let it, going off of what you just said, you know, for a young female, like or any age female, like, just don't let it push you out. Don't let them like have the power to force you out of something that you might be amazing at, you know, 5 years down the road.
It can be,
do you know what I mean?
so disheartening. It really can. So, and thank God I'm an older woman, because even younger, I would have just taken that so hard. Yeah. And I'm just like, what? It's like a little fly. Get out of here.
Yeah.
And there were bar shows. Come on, dude. Come on. You're not pulling some leverage for the improv here, buddy. Bar shows.
Yeah. But it's great. I mean, how are you networking out in Miami right now? Are you just going out to the shows and trying to meet who's in the lineup?
Well, a really, really, really good friend of mine for like the last 15 years is out here. So Chad Ridgely is out here. I don't know if you've run into him.
I feel like he and I were in a show here in LA.
I would guess, because he was everywhere. And so he's here now. He's a little bit more up the coast, but I just did a comedy festival with him last weekend, thanks to his introduction. So I've been on a couple of shows. And then I noticed Richie Lace is out here. Did you know that?
I know the name. I'm
Yeah, so
probably
I
friends with
picked
him on
him up,
Instagram.
and he was just so kind. He introduced me to a bunch of people, and I did a show with them. And so far I've been networking through the people that I already know, but they've already been in these waters. So they're introducing me to the right people, and I super, super, super appreciate that. So that's been good. And then I've met a couple of really lovely ladies, and and the women here have been so welcoming in the comedy scene. I appreciate that so much. They've just been really kind.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. How is the comedy scene there in Miami? Is it pretty
It's
good?
awesome. I'm impressed. There are so many shows and real audiences, and there's something every night of the week all over the place if you want it. And a lot of, great, great, great comedians that I've seen so far. So it's it's a tourist town. So there's a lot to do here. So I'm excited for it. Even
That's
if it's a
awesome.
slow ramp up, I'm happy for it. So
Yeah. I was in Miami 3 years ago, and it was really pretty. I liked it. I hung out in Miami for a little bit, and then drove my wife down to Key West. Drove down through the Keys. That was a nice drive. I think anyone who goes down to Miami,
hours.
it is. It's a long drive,
Yeah.
but we made it like a whole day. Got away from the kids, left them with the grandparents, and then just drove down to.
You just leave them in the hotel.
Yeah, you guys take care of yourself. Here's some Ben and Jerry's. We'll be back tomorrow. Yeah, no, we left them with the grandparents, and we just drove slowly through the Keys because there's all those long bridges, and just looked at real estate and houses and stuff like that, and wanted to try the key lime pie, which originates down there in Key West, and it was incredible for sure. Jillie, so that concludes the questions for anyone who wants to see. Do you have any upcoming like Zoom shows, virtual shows? Do you have any shows in Miami that you might be doing?
One that I know of so far is I'm doing the Villain Theater on June 11th. That one nice. I know about. Of course, I'll be trying to get on some other ones in the meantime, but still ramping up there. I do the panel Woman Up show with Benji Garcia Reyes.
Yeah, I know Benji.
Together. Yeah, I do those about weekly. So those, I just did one last night. I think next week we're Tuesday for some reason because people are getting back to their live schedules. So we're shifting around a little bit. But I love the panel because we take news stories every week and we riff we pick a selection of them and we go around the group and we give our 2 cents on these ridiculous news stories. So I love it. And I love that it's about the ladies. Sometimes I do it with the guys, but mostly the ladies. And that was the other place I was going to move if I didn't, well, I was supposed to move there and then I chose here, but it was more for financial reasons because.
Well, where's there? Where's Benji?
Oh, I'm sorry. San Diego.
Oh, okay. That's down in San Diego. So, is that where Benji is?
Yeah, they are doing comedy like crazy down there. They've got so many rooms and they're really, I'm so proud of them and they're doing so well. I consider that my core group of people. So I'm very happy for them.
See, like I love Benji. I've done several of his shows and I've tried getting him on my channel and trying to get him to do some of my stuff like this. And he's always like, he's said yes and we'll book a date. And then he's like, dude, I just booked this. I got to take care of this. And I'm like, dude, I'm trying to, like, he's so busy. He's so hard to like get.
But he is seriously hustling it in the comedy scene. He's got rooms going every night. He's keeping up the virtuals and it's impressive. So he's a hard worker.
Yeah. No, I love it.
I know because if he loves you and he's loyal and a good, so I wanted to move down to San Diego, and then suddenly, like overnight, the housing prices just went like from I could afford this to, oh my God, I'm going to live in a trailer. So I chose down here because I could work from anywhere. So
yeah. And Miami, I mean, come on, Miami's beautiful. People are beautiful. It's beautiful food.
it's
Amazing.
true. I'm walking around going, wow. I mean, even the grandmas are hot, you know. Damn.
I have a buddy, another comedian, Eric Stenson. He has this whole thing about if you want to live in Miami, you have to be an 8 to live in Miami or higher. And just it's true. Like everyone is beautiful down there. That's one thing. My wife and I, we've been together 20 years, but we love sitting down at like a coffee shop and then we just talk about people. We love doing that. It's just one thing we like doing on like a Saturday morning. We were in Miami and we're just like, oh my God, like, there's nothing bad to say. Like it's beautiful down there. Only thing I didn't like was the humidity. That's the only thing I didn't like.
I know. Right now I'm melting. I had to shut the window because it was like suddenly it will just rain out of the blue, just like torrential. I was walking my dog just for the morning the other day, and I forget to check the weather here, and it just downpoured, and I was stuck in the middle of it. And I walk into the Whole Foods to get my coffee, and the guy's looking at me, and I'm just dripping like I was in a shower, and I'm like, don't judge me, I'm new here.
You got it. Yeah, it's. I was down in Texas for a long time too, in Houston, and very similar weather. It's that Gulf weather. They did get rain out of nowhere, but it just the humidity is just killer. You know, it's not the temperature; it's the humidity, and I just can't do it. I can do it in small little.
That's why 1 week at a time. Tell if I'm getting hot flashes from my second vaccine, or if it's the weather, or if it's my age and I'm actually getting hot flashes, or it's the wine. I don't really know which one is causing any of this.
It's a little confusing right now. That's awesome. Jillie, where can people find you? Social media? Do you have a website? And just for anyone, make sure you look in the description below. I'll have it all listed.
Everything that says The Cougar of Comedy.com, The Cougar of Comedy on Instagram. I think at Twitter it might be Jillie Reil. But mostly, I have thrown up The Cougar of Comedy all over the interwebs, so you won't have trouble finding me.
Was that okay? Real quick before we finish, The Cougar of Comedy. What made you one day just roll out of bed and be like, aha?
Me. It wasn't even me, and I have a friend to thank for eternity for this. She owned a salon at the time, but she was also friends with a celebrity beauty magazine called Beauty Entertainment Magazine. And she said I'd been doing comedy for a little while, and she's like, I'm going to submit you as a celebrity in the salon getting the hair done. But she's like, we need to give you a name, though. And I thought it would just end up in the back of the magazine, like, well, they thought it was so good that she called me the Cougar of Comedy, visits Mariel Salon or whatever it was. And of course, it was under a giant picture of Beyonce's butt at the Super Bowl, but I was there on the cover right below Beyonce's butt as the Cougar of Comedy. And then I do legal work at my day job. And the attorney I was working with at the time trademarked my name for my 40th birthday. So I do have some people to thank for this goodness. So It wasn't all me.
Well, that's awesome. I love it. It's a great brand. I think that's a great thing about being a comedian is that the one part of your journey is to figure out who you are on stage, what's your voice, what's your persona. That's something I've been working on for like the last 6 months. I have a book next to me by Steve North called How to Kill in Comedy. And it's a fantastic book, but it's all about finding out who's your persona on stage, because once you figure that out, the Cougar of Comedy, you have your presence on stage. So now okay, when I write jokes, it's in that perspective, and it's just easier. I think it's easier to write a joke. And so like, that's why I told you, like, all my stuff is this family guy, this guy who's a father of two and married to a Filipino woman and just loves his family, but also like, competitive to a T, like I will not let my kids win anything, and just and just a comedy that comes out of that. And it's good for branding. You figure out who you are, and then people start going, oh, that's the guy, or that's the woman who does this and this. And think about all the big comedians that we love. They all have, you can call it a shtick, you can call it like that. You might not remember the joke specifically, but you know what kind of person they are.
About.
And
that's why I'm like, as much as I'm flattered, people need to stop asking me if I can do clean comedy. I can't.
That's not your thing. No one would ask Andrew Dice Clay like, "Hey, can you come do a clean set at the church?" like, no. Are you freaking kidding me? No.
Or Nikki Glazer. Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly. So you have to find what's your voice, what's the best persona you're going to be on stage. I think once you figure that out, it gets a little easier writing your material for sure. Well, thank you so much, Jillie. I really appreciate you. You brought a lot of information for people to kind of dig through and learn from. And I think it's great. And I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you. And have a wonderful evening.
You too. Damn! Jillie Reil, the Cougar of comedy, with some insight, some wisdom, some knowledge for all you comedians out there, both pro and new. You can find her information in the description below. If you have any questions, leave that in the comment section below. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, all that. I want to see you again. Who should I be interviewing next? All right, I love you guys. I will see you next week.